Welcome back to the Brickafit channel. Today we have a very special guest. We're here at Brick Fair, Chantilly, Virginia, and as a guest that we've had on before, he's back with an even better MOC. I can't believe it. Eric Larson here with
Eric and Gunnar Larson, obviously. And this is our Filet Pocket 2024 Brick Fair build. What we want to do is honor the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Normandy and do a battle that you don't see very often, which is the Filet Pocket, which is the last day of the Battle of Normandy in late August 1944. So when we start here, we started with this part of the MOC and then worked our way down. This is the German 7th Army being encircled. About 100,000 troops were in the pocket. They were being encircled to the south by the Americans and to the north by the British, Canadians, Poles. And they realized we need to get our way out of here or else we're going to be completely encircled. So there was only a couple bridges that could carry armor to the east. And two of these bridges were at St. Lambert sur Dive. So as the Germans approached the bridges, they had to jettison a lot of their horse-drawn transport, their artillery, their slower prime movers, buses, things of that nature, so that they could get just the most important pieces out. So that's kind of what this first field shows. And it shows them actually breaking down and escaping through this area. Another big part of this battle was the 2nd Parachute Corps with the Green Devils. Fallschirmjägers were tasked with breaking out because they were perceived to be the crack troops that could actually do the job. So we're showing the Fallschirmjägers making their way to the front. And as we transition down, we get into a traditional field in St. Lambert. All of these buildings still exist. If you go on Google Earth and you want to go to St. Lambert sur Dive, you can actually drop on the ground here and walk up the road and you'll see these exact buildings. With the exception of the Dubonnet building, that was burnt down, so I was actually able to print a 1930s French ad on it and kind of freelance. So I did freelance that building. There's a private person's house there now. So these two Panthers were knocked out in the river and pushed off to the side to make room for other Allied vehicles to go through. So there's a famous picture that shows the Panthers. In the background there's this house with a round that had gone through. So the angle you're at now is actually the angle that photograph was taken at. So that was a nice little detail we had. As we cross the second bridge going up by the church, there's another famous picture of the Panther abandoning this field, and that's with a cart in the field behind it, so we did that as well. This was the big crossroads here next to the church was an area where the German forces had to decide if they were going to go south down toward Moissy Ford corridor and break out that way, or break out on the roads to the east of St. Lambert. There was, as I say, 100,000 Germans in the pocket, so they used the church as a signaling tower and a radio tower to get notes out to the German units that were behind it. Rally on the church, it's still open, we can still break out here. So there we show the German command here negotiating how are we going to break out and how we're going to punch out of the pocket. There were German units on the outside pushing in, and they were going to push out and try and break through, because at this point the Canadians and Poles had closed the pocket. You'll see the signs of the particular units there, the units that were involved and which directions they were going to head in, vindicated that as well. As we move on a little ways, we did do the graveyard that was there at the church. There was a lot of wounded going through the area as well, so we modeled also Gunnar-made Opel Blitzes and medical Kuba wagons that we've shown. These buildings were big into the production of apples, and particularly alcoholic French cider, so we depicted a scene there that has the German forces that have run in, and you can see inside they found the casks of alcohol and actually bottles, and they're just content getting inebriated and surrender. And they actually quite a few of them surrendered. And some of the elite troops that came through didn't care too much for seeing that and ended up fighting and maybe sometimes shooting the Germans that were content with surrendering. Moving into this section, I really wanted to show the bocage and the hedgerows that the Allied forces had to deal with in cutting through Normandy. One of the biggest things that they had never thought through before the invasion process was the existence of the hedgerows. So we really got some really intense detailed foliage in this area, and and we got a Panzerschreck team there getting ready to take on these Americans that are on the corner. The American troops weren't really this close, but we're kind of showing that they were there, and this is who was pressing from the south. You had the 90th Infantry Division coming up, so we got some Americans there. Then we're showing the breakout road. Some of the Germans were able to actually break out and get out of the pocket, and this was one of the roads that was clear. So they're breaking out. That's a great shot up the road of the retreating Germans. And on the next road, we're kind of simulating the corridor of death, which was where the Poles and the Canadians and the British were able to just bombard the German columns as they were pouring eastward at highest speed over open sights. They wouldn't have to even gun it in. They could see them. They were so close. They were able to slaughter the Germans that were coming through. Eisenhower visited the battlefield just after the battle and said it was like Dante's Inferno. You could walk 100 yards without ever not stepping on flesh. That's how bad it was on those roads. That's the town hall of St. Lambert. Moving into traditional farmers' fields, we'll encounter the Canadians and the Poles on the hills overlooking the roads. And there was a Canadian photographic team there taking pictures, so there's a detailed account of the actual fighting in St. Lambert as well as video of the actual fighting down this road. So we had a good amount of material to work with to show the actual fighting. And in particular, David Currie was able to get the Victoria Cross, which is Canada's highest award, or the Commonwealth's highest award, for capturing so many prisoners and actually helping to close the gap down and prevent the Germans from escaping. So the famous photo here of him actually taking them prisoners and standing with another tanker who had his jacket burnt off. And then we do have the Polish Firefly as well as a few Canadian Shermans. So a very little modeled aspect of the war is seeing the Polish and the Canadians, and we actually do have their flags on the side of the base so you can tell which forces are fighting there to kind of help out, because they do look like Shermans. So I just wanted everyone to know those are, other forces rather than the Americans. So kind of, I think we did a great job fulfilling what I was looking for, and there was a lot of documentation to work with, and we got I think we modeled the village very well.
Yes, did an incredible job. I mean, just all these techniques that you use. What are some of your favorite techniques that you use to bring this to life?
Yeah, a lot of the trees people are commenting on that new upside down leaf, as well as I actually love this plowed field using those turned sideways, and I think it really turned into looking like it was a plowed field. I want to do a bit of a farm there and break up the monotony of the front green. A lot of the roof techniques with the shingled roofs and using the cheese slopes and different combinations was really something that people have enjoyed. And yeah, everybody comments on the foliage and how we did that. So
yeah, it's just the amount of
using whips
density.
and moving in a lot of detail just to show how dense that vegetation was.
Yeah, the amount of density you're able to convey, and just this is like foliage. It's so beautiful of how it's conveyed here.
I would say further down to where we started, the actual using the Thor's hammers as a way of making cobblestone has been really commented on. So those are 700 Thor's hammers reversed and pressed into a headlight brick and just put over the top of plate, not locked into with the sub level, and so you can move them back and forth to make it look like uneven cobblestone.
So how did you acquire so many Thor's hammers? Just pick a brick? Or?
No, pick a brick on Lego.com. Yeah, there was a good price on that and on the new leaf pieces, so we just went to bricks and pieces on Lego.com and were able to get them that way.
So when printing stuff like this, what was your reference for this particular ad?
Yeah, French advertising in the 1930s on buildings was very in vogue. There's a lot of different buildings. So I saw a picture in a town that's about a mile away up in Troon that had that on the side of the building. So it's a copy of the actual building sign that I saw about a mile from this location.
And did you print all of your all of that?
Yeah, the roof tiles were printed. Absolutely, give it a little bit of extra, different texture. Because all the roofs are different. All the roofs are very similar, but I wanted to have it look a little bit different to make it a little bit, each building a little distinct in its own.
And so were there any particular vehicles or really cool vehicles you want to showcase?
So there were a lot of vehicles that were left behind. About 3,000 German vehicles were left here. So much so that at the Troon ammo dump in the 1970s and early 80s, you could still find pieces of German wrecks. The three most interesting vehicles, I'd say, are the two Panzer Lukes that they actually got in this actual field. One is at Samur, and the other one is at Boddington. Those two Lukes were left there by Panzer Lehr, and they actually took them straight back to the museums, and they reside there still. So I got the numbering that they had on them when they were picked up by the museums.
How did you get these little green pieces?
The other item that we're working on is the Tiger tank at the middle of the road is the Wittmuer's Tiger, which actually stayed on the road in France all the way in the 70s, pushed off to the side into the forest, and They actually were able to travel up the road I've just shown, ran out of fuel, and then scuttled their Tiger by blowing the engine. So that is a Tiger that actually still exists today on the roads. If you follow these roads out of St. Lambert, it's actually sitting in the middle of the roadway about 2 miles from here.
Wow. And so, is there any interiors to any of the buildings?
Not really, because the greebling technique you use with the 1x2s turned sideways makes the interior of the building very difficult to model. But on the edge that we have the open roof, where there was a shell hole, we do have an interior there. And the broken glass windows, you can see into a conference they're having about the breakout through the glass. My son Gunnar made those. And he usually works on all the interiors and the lighting. All the buildings do light up, including the stained glass in the windows of the church, which is really, really nice during World of Lights. The only other interior would be the actual interior that we talked about with the barrels of alcohol inside the distillery.
How much of this brick has been reused from your previous MOCs?
Well, I know you always say that was the latest and greatest MOC and don't want us to destroy it, but I can tell you we got part of the submarine pins here. The railway station from Karelia is the dark tan that you see everywhere, and anything white is also from the railway station we did a couple years ago. So it always gets reused. That's part of the fun of Lego and why we do it. So a vast majority of this will be broken down today and reused for whatever we build next year.
Wow. Any plans on what it's going to be next year?
No plans yet. This was a big enough project. I'm going to take a week or two off and sort all this Lego back into bins, which is going to take a long time, and then we'll work on it.
What about the vehicles? Will those be torn down, or will you?
No, the vehicles will all stay the same. Those won't go anywhere. There's a lot of people that are inquiring about the vehicles as of right now, so they're all custom marked, custom units. The units that were actually here fighting in this battle, so each individual vehicle is different and marked differently.
Any ideas of going into different wars besides World War II, or are you sticking with that?
I'd love to do something World War I, honestly. I'd really love to do a World War I thing. I just need to work on the vehicles, get the figures, and really represent a good World War I MOC. So that might be the direction. We'll see.
And I understand you printed all these minifigures yourself?
No, but not all of them. TMC did a lot of these figures. There's some Valiant bricks as well, and there are Panzer Brick Lab figures as well, particularly the Fallschirmjägers.
Okay, but some of them you did print.
Absolutely, 100%.
What is your plan on what are you going to do with those after this?
Well, we've been busy building, but in the future we're going to definitely work on our own line of figs and make sure that we can do figs for the MOCs we're depicting mainly, so that we can accurately, I want everything to be accurately modeled using existing prints that are in museums, or I can see visually in photographs so that we can make sure that we have the highest level of accuracy.
I noticed that you have the nets here. Where did you get that technique from?
Net technique we used last year in order to build the rolling of the waves. So I figured it would be nice to fall off. This was an irrigation ditch. So I used the nets all along the irrigation ditch. It is a very, very difficult technique not to get the gaps at the top. So it's not something I love to use, but it does give a very unique technique to Lego.
Yeah, it really is a nice end cap for there. Anything else you'd like to shout out?
No, you did a great job covering everything, and I really appreciate seeing you every year at Brick Fair.
Yep, we appreciate seeing you guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.